So Tom Segura is one of the biggest comedians out there with 2 wildly successful YouTube channels, a massive top comedy podcast with Bert Kreischer, and a very successful comedy world tour. And although he is a good performer, a great stand-up comic, he mostly got a lot of his fame from podcasting, which he has been doing for a while. So naturally, because of that, there will be weird moments and awkward moments in his career. So today, we'll take a look at some of the most intense and hard to watch moments in Tom Segura's history. From the wild podcast in which he got called out by Quentin Tarantino for not reading his book, to the now infamous podcast with Theo Von, in which they talk about Theogate, and Tom Segura ends up getting upset. Now, a lot of people are still debating whether this was real or staged, so let's get started.
Yeah, I know you got to run, but it's a real treat. Thank you for
my pleasure
for coming, and congrats on the book.
Oh, okay, you said you've been reading it for a little bit. All right, where are you up to now?
I don't know. You are talking about you've started to go to
opening chapter.
Yeah. But I didn't read it. I told you that.
I know. Boy, you were still listening to it.
I was listening to it. Yeah,
so you've listened to the half of the opening chapter. Where in the opening chapter did you arrive at? When you listened to it today for the first time, as you drove from your house to the studio today.
Not today.
When you pulled up today, where was it at?
I swear to God, not today. And I'll tell you where I am. You're at the movies.
Okay.
That's where you're at in this one.
Yeah, that's it. The Jim Brown movie. Yeah, that's what you.
It's about 19.
That's the ticket. That's the ticket.
1970, something like that.
You're literally describing the first 3 pages.
Now, to better understand how wild this is, Quentin Tarantino, like him or not, is one of the GOATs when it comes to filmmaking. And his appearance on Two Bears, One Cave is quickly becoming their most viewed episode ever on their entire channel. That's including the YMH studios, all of their videos, and even passing the Joe Rogan episode with over 3.4 million views in only 5 months. So it's a pretty big deal. And the fact that this happened literally like 5 minutes before the podcast ended was brutal, because Tom was asking pretty good questions about the book and about Quentin's, career and movies, which were clearly given to him, but they were pretty good questions. However, Tarantino picked up on that, he noticed, and decided to call him out at the end of the podcast. And although Quentin was nice about it, it was still pretty hard to watch, because it's interesting how Tom Segura is massively successful. Obviously, he's rich and all that, but he was still visibly uncomfortable. And you can tell that he was a little bit embarrassed after getting called out, which wouldn't happen. I don't think it would happen with any other guest.
Look, man, I only go by audio. I don't know what pages mean.
You are literally describing the first 3 pages.
Doesn't take away from the fact that I'm a genuine fan.
Okay, no, it doesn't.
And I asked good questions.
Yes, you did.
Doesn't mean that I'm not going to read this.
Exactly. Could have been a little bit more in depth on the manuscript that I'm here to talk about, but nevertheless.
Getting roasted by Quentin at the end of this thing. All right, I will read. I now own a physical. I wrote a book too this year. Can I give you a copy of it?
Yes, you may.
Will you pretend to read it?
I will pretend to read it.
Obviously, when this happened, a lot of the fans were defending Tom Segura, basically saying that it was Two Bears, One Cave, so he didn't really need to prepare, and it wasn't that big of a deal, and that it wasn't the Joe Rogan Experience. And to that I say, then why have Quentin Tarantino on? Sure, anything for more views, I would have done the same, but if you actually respect Tarantino, at the very least, you could have not pretended that you were starting to read his book when you had no intention of doing it. Because sure, there are a lot of people that go on podcasts and promote their books, try to sell whatever they have to sell, and they're promoting it. But when it comes to Tarantino, it's a little bit different, because you could tell that it was a product that he was actually passionate about, that he worked on, kind of like one of his movies. So now watching that or not reading that book was pretty brutal.
Yeah, can I just say this real quick?
Yeah.
Every time we talk about like a watch or a car, I'll get a bunch of messages from losers that try to tell me that I'm making them feel bad about their situation. You're in control of your own situation and your own feelings. So don't put it on me that you feel bad that I have something that, but I'm struggling with rent this month. Figure it the out, okay? Like, don't make my life be a problem for your life. If you don't like it, guess what? You're not going to be able to control what people talk about. People are going to talk about things that you don't have for the rest of your life. So you can decide like, okay, I won't, fine, don't listen to me, don't listen to that person anymore. But you have to control your own feelings, okay? It's not on other people to make sure they don't talk about a topic that makes you feel bad, all right? Like, I lost 20 grand gambling this weekend. Go ahead.
Now, this one is likely a joke, but it's a tricky one because obviously when it happened, a lot of people were mad, but most fans didn't care, and they were actually defending Tom Segura because here's the thing. He's an actual funny comedian and a funny person, so he can get away with saying stuff like that. However, what's interesting is that is exactly how Brendan Schaub started to turn his fan base against him. Obviously, a whole different person, two different scenarios, but it's just interesting. And I think a better approach would have been the Louis C.K. way, in which he essentially jokes about being way richer than everybody else, than anybody else. And he's not ashamed of that, but it's only lasting a couple of years and it's going to be bad. It ended up being essentially true in a way. So now when it comes to Tom, it didn't sound like he was joking and rather sounded pretty serious. So who knows? But by the way, if you're liking what you're seeing so far, please make sure to hit that like button. It helps out so much to push the video to more people. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And then all of a sudden it was like the genie was out of the bottle. It was just kind of too late to become a different kind of podcast. So I just constantly just did it.
Shared it. Like
yeah. And it was just hard. I mean, I don't know how you guys do it, but you guys probably don't reveal intimate things about you guys and personal things.
It's more calculated. Yeah. So yeah, not as much for sure. Not as much.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys still cuddle and all that stuff? I mean, when's the last time you had a cuddle session?
So you ever see this?
No. I want to know for myself.
I want to know what's going on here.
Now, this one's wild for so many reasons, and it's actually related to the main thing that we'll be covering in a little bit. But essentially, when this podcast happened, Bobby Lee and Kalila had just officially announced that they were, they had broken up and were no longer in a relationship. That's when they started doing the whole podcast tour, essentially explaining what had just happened. And one of the podcasts was with Tom Segura. In that conversation, they were talking about how much personal details they shared to the fans. And that's when Bobby Lee asked Tom Segura and Christina a very tough question that got a very weird response. Here's the thing. Asking Tom and Christina if they still cuddle is so wild and so funny, and it clearly caught him off guard. It was obvious that they didn't know how to respond and had no other option than to just completely ignore the question and move on. Even after Bobby Lee asked them again, which is pretty savage, they still just completely moved on to a whole different subject.
So is this next clip, is this the smoking gun? Oh my God.
What's a smoking gun?
This is the one that everybody thinks that Theo and I had an affair.
What's this?
You didn't see this video yet, Tom?
What is this?
Start off with Christina Pajitsky. Hi. That is a fascinating last name. What is the best pronunciation of your name you've ever heard?
Oh, ever heard? Mm-hmm. Someone's totally abandoned. Oh,
what the is this?
Okay. Which is actually another comedian in LA, Esther Pavitsky.
Okay. No relation.
So this is a little intro.
No,
of course not.
Wait, are we gonna watch the whole interview? This is so boring. I can't. Oh, there it is. There it is.
When you do your comedy,
and I don't.
You go whatever. So is it hard?
Oh, I don't even remember that one.
On TV and be TV queen?
No, not at all. I mean, I was on Chelsea lately.
And I never looked at her chest or anything, Tom. If you look
you
at
just
me,
have to know what medium you're working.
Please don't play my boring interview. So is this the first time you've seen that, Tom?
What is going on?
Yeah, look, I didn't. That's me.
Look at that. Look at that.
Let's see the hand. What's that all about? What is that all about?
That's a church. Something you do at church, even.
Okay, so Theogate has been going on for a while and hasn't officially been debunked yet. If you're not familiar with what it is, essentially a while back, fans from both Theo and Tom Segura and Christina were speculating about whether Theo and Christina had a thing back in the day while she was still married to Tom Segura. Back then, both Theo and Tom Segura behind the scenes were essentially planning a fake drama, a fake beef to make the fans speculate even more. The plan actually worked, and the whole thing was supposed to be squashed during Theo's first and only appearance on Tom Segura's and Christina's podcast. They were essentially showing all the evidence, proving to the fans that everything was staged and that Theo and Tom were actually pretty good friends behind the scenes, except for one video that apparently Tom Segura had not seen, in which Theo and Christina were holding hands back in the day.
Now, Theo, you came clean and you said that you felt that we didn't like you.
Right.
Now, this, I remember, how long ago was this? What do you remember even what
This was
year
in West Palm Beach.
Right, but how many, I don't know.
Probably 9 years ago.
Okay, so.
Or 7.
We were last minute put together to co-headline that weekend. And I thought that you didn't like me. Because I remember like we take turns headlining, and I was in the green room, and I don't know, maybe you were joking. I'm sure you were, but you were like, I don't like it when women don't act like ladies. Do you remember this conversation? You're like, back where I'm from, girls don't act like you do on stage. And I was like,
really? I said that?
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe we were, a little drinky drink. I don't know. And so I was like, oh, he doesn't like me. And I think what I was doing there is like a lame attempt at like, well, he doesn't like me, I'm going to annoy him. Because watching that now, that's something, I mean, I knew I was being taped. Obviously, I was married to Tom. I've been with him for a million years. Never cheated.
You guys were married at that point?
Oh, I think so. We
I
got
didn't know
married
that.
in 2008. Anyways, I think that's what I was trying to do. And also because we were on the same...
You didn't seem like a married person.
Oh, stop it. We were on the same show together. I think people assume that because you've done Road Rules that we're all part of a sorority.
You
and
do
that
look
we should
annoyed.
all be...
Like I said, we've actually covered this in the past, and a lot of people were split on this, with some people thinking that the last 10 minutes of the podcast, when that happened, was the whole thing was a bit, and actually all three of them were acting and knew exactly what was going on. They were acting just to make the fans speculate even more. Other people think that the whole thing was real and that Tom Segura was actually upset by the evidence that was presented. Obviously, the whole reason why Theo was there was to squash the beef. So deleting that part of the episode was not an option. And the thing is, both have pretty good points, but I have to side with the whole thing being real, just because it would be giving them a lot of credit for actually pulling the entire thing off.
But I just know I was trying to be immature and ridiculous, and that's what happened there.
Yeah.
But no, I
you
adore you.
See this thing.
No, but I've seen you since then over the years, and you've been nothing but nice to me and gracious, and
Yeah, the same. I don't know why. Maybe I thought, maybe I felt like you didn't. I don't know. I don't know where some of the, if I ever had any animosity. I thought maybe, you didn't like me, and then that's why Tom didn't like me.
Oh,
and so there was just, but obviously a lot of that was in my own head.
I think it was.
Maybe in all of
was.
us in our own heads.
Yeah.
Because we have nothing but love.
Yeah, same. And I'm sorry if I
acting.
ever said something that hurt made you guys feel, like that I didn't.
Oh my gosh.
That I was being rude or something. Or, I don't know, man. I mean, sometimes, even my actions aren't even what I want them to be,
Of course.
It's I'm glad you came. I really am. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. No, I'm glad I came too.
Could finally put an end to all the scandal.
Wow.
Regardless of whether you think it was real or not, it's still a pretty interesting situation, because there's no denying that Christina P. and Theo Von actually knew each other back in the day and were kind of close. At the very least, they were flirting or being friendly on video, so who knows what happened off camera. However, what's more interesting is that if the whole thing is actually staged, their acting was essentially perfect. It is truly great acting and planning and taking advantage of the situation, almost too good to be true. However, if it's real, it makes it some of the most intense and hard to watch podcast footage out there, in my opinion, because it's clearly involving somebody's relationship and potential and claims of them potentially having an affair in the past with another huge comic. Who knows if that's true? It's all speculation at the end of the day. And what makes me believe that it wasn't staged is the fact that they never addressed it again. For example, they squashed the whole beef. They told the fans the truth that it was staged and all that. But after the podcast aired, they have never done each other's podcast again. They haven't worked together, even though they're some of the most known comedians out there, Tom and Theo. Once again, it's not enough evidence, but it's pretty interesting. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Dislike if you didn't like the video, but that is all we have for today. See ya.